Okay, we have construction management, which is a field of project management focused on overseeing and coordinating the planning, budgeting, and execution of construction projects. We were tasked with using Connects Legos. We only could use 20 to create a building structure. We each had to build a structure, create a drawing of each of the views, the isometric front view, right side, and top view. Then we would trade sketches and recreate our partner's building with only the sketches. Okay, these were mean sketches. We didn't give each other the pictures, we just gave each other the sketches. This is the
Yeah.
original. This was the original thing that she built and I had to recreate it. This was her estimate. This was her estimate for that original build. And this was what I recreated. The only difference was with the materials because Amin originally used 4 red connectors and I didn't use any, and I used 6 yellow connectors and she only used 2. My supply total 1,300 and Amin's estimate total was 1,180. So I spent $120 more than I was supposed to. And because she approved my design, I did not have to fill out any requests for materials.
I mean, I don't know if you're talking and we can't hear. I don't know.
No, it's been glitching. The service is bad, so I was like, I don't know. I didn't want to speak up her if she was talking or not.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is pretty much the same thing that Manisha already did. This is her version of everything. So her isometric top, right side, and front view, as well as her build. Totaling up to $1,118. Okay, so like she said, I got the I got denied. I would definitely say as someone who has like never played with these connect pieces before, I'm glad I got the opportunity during this training to do it because I now know the frustration that my children are going to feel, because it definitely I was definitely frustrated because it was like, okay, literally, how do I even get these pieces to go together? So yeah, but so let me read the slide first. So yeah, I got the nod. The main reason for denial after we discussed it was, I believe, optically looking at it, it was atrocious, but we said the height difference. So like my roof at the front piece is lower than the back piece. And it's just overall shorter, while hers was more symmetric and taller. So if we get to the actual details of it, we both did use 10 sticks total. 10 sticks total. I initially used 2 orange, 4 red, 2 green, 2 gray for $640, while her actual bill only used the 4 red and 6 yellow sticks for $830. And that's what I explained initially was my RFI reasoning for question 2.
Okay.
Did it go backwards or is my screen glitching?
I think I was trying to get
Okay.
sure I got
So
it on
after
side.
I worked a little more, here is the edited version. Oh yeah.
There we go.
Here's the edited version of what I came up with that she did approve. So the question was, explain in detail any mistakes or rebuilding opportunities. I believe my rebuilding opportunity would be to spend more time examining the pieces that I'm working with. Miss Vanessa.
Yeah.
Miss Vanessa.
Yeah.
Okay, it went away. Focusing on the symmetry as well. My roof had a weird drop that also made it look shorter. What'd you say? I was calling your name because the cursor was on the board.
I see. Sorry.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. It's raining here. It's probably raining there. I think we're having
Oh,
the connection issues.
yes.
Okay.
Okay. So then the next question was analyze and explain how your profit was affected, and why this was important to consider as a construction company. My profit was affected negatively. The initial bid was for $1,055, while the actual job costed $1,445. The cost difference mainly stemmed from the amount of time that it took me when I had to rebuild. So my biggest takeaway will be time is money. Yes, because when I had to rebuild and get the different materials, yeah, it added on. It was $25 a minute, so I think I ended up taking like 15 minutes or something. Yeah, 15. I think that's what the paper says. I can't
I think 13,
see
I
all
see
the way.
13 minutes.
But it was fun. Like I said, definitely had to spend, if I could have or recommend to any of you guys for people that haven't, it says 15. You said it does say 15?
I think there's a lag. I think the paper says 13
Miss
minutes.
Vanessa. You can hear me? Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, 13? Okay. Okay. That's
All right, I can
I'm
take,
done.
I think there's a lag in you hearing what I'm saying. So, but we can hear you fine. And yeah, awesome. So, questions from the group before I make some thoughts or share some thoughts?
Why did it cost so much?
Seemed like the time we had to have the stopwatch going the whole time we did the project. Like when we was doing the estimate, we went to the bucket to get the supplies, everything. We had to have the timer going, and it was $25 per minute. So that took the price up too.
Yeah. Yeah, so just a couple of points of clarification. So I see that this was the initial design of the object with the sketches, and then this was what was built. So the goal is actually that they build exactly the same thing. Okay, so so see here, there are no green connectors, right? So there's what? There's 1, 2, 3, there's 6 yellow, 4 blue, 2 red sticks, and then 4 red connectors. So basically the way that we would want this to go is that, you know, so Renisha designed this house and then drew the pictures. So Amin is only going to get the pictures. She's not going to get the actual
And
house.
that is very hard to recreate if you don't have the sketches in color or something, because how are you gonna pick the exact pieces if we don't know what?
Right. So you can use color. And then you also, you can just give the kids like limited supplies. Okay, so like you would maybe just pick like one type of connector
Mhm.
and then like 3 stick lengths, something like that. So you can limit the supplies so that the you know, it does make it a little bit easier to understand, but it's also has to do a little bit with the details of the sketch. So I know Edie's probably like, oh man, I can take this as like a 5-week project, you know. So you know, we want the sketches to be detailed, but not, you know, crazy detailed. But that's also where the RFIs come in. Okay, so what y'all did in this project is typically what we see from the kids, but what we want to try to push them towards is the idea of using the RFIs a little bit more. So basically, Renisha drew this and Amin is building it. Okay, so Amin is going to get these drawings, which are great, you know, very good drawings and detailed drawings. And she might say, there's 3 different types of connectors, okay, that are available to me. I know that she's using connectors, but I don't know which ones they are. Okay, so she's going to use an RFI, which is this paper, okay, and she's going to say, hey, Renisha, company, you know, whatever. I'm not clear on what kind of connectors I should be using. Please clarify. Okay, so Amin is building. Amin's going to run over to Renisha's team and submit an RFI. Renisha's team is supposed to stop working while they answer that RFI, and they say, okay, well, the top ones are yellow connectors and the bottom ones are the red connectors. Okay, so then she's going to give that RFI back to Amin, and Amin's going to read it and say, oh, okay, now I've clarified that the top connectors are all yellow and the bottom connectors are all red. So then Amin's going to keep building. Then she's going to say, you know, well, I have another clarification request. You know, I can't tell from your drawing if this is the long stick or the short stick. Okay, so she's going to say, okay, so Amin's going to write another RFI and say, you know, for the roof, for these 4 sticks for the roof, are those the short, the medium, or the long sticks? You know, something like that, right? So as the drawings are, the clearer the drawings are, the less requests for information there has the potential to be, but there's always going to be some you know, requests for there should always be some requests for clarification. And again, that's based on how y'all interpreted it. I feel like I need to update some of the teacher notes or some of the explanations to kind of maybe clarify, you know, limiting the supplies, having let me pull up the
And can you clarify, when should the timer be rolling and when should the timer not be rolling?
yeah, so basically from the time you hand over the drawings, so let me hold on. I will answer that question, but let me kind of back up. So this is another one similar to petroleum where there's kind of like phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, so and that's where it can kind of get a little bit confusing. So phase 1 is Renisha is the designer. So Renisha is drawing and designing an object. And she is sketching it, and she is providing the true cost of that design and estimating how long it takes to build it. So that's phase 1. And so then Amin's team is also doing phase 1. So Amin's team is building her design, which we saw was this design. Okay, so Amin is designing hers and doing the sketches. Okay, so that's phase 1 for all of the teams. So if we have 5 teams in the class, 5 teams are coming up with an object, they are sketching the object, and then they are creating the cost of it, the true cost, using the right materials. You know, they're identifying which parts they've used, and then they're estimating how long it took for them to build it. And when I say estimate, they can take it apart and rebuild it. They can and actually time themselves or do an estimate of how long it took for them to build this object. Okay. So that's part one. Then you're going to take each of the designs and either assign them to teams or let the teams choose or somehow swap. Okay. So now Renisha is going to be bidding on Amin's design. And the only thing Amin has are the drawings, right? Because in real life, all you have are the drawings, and you have to say, I need to provide a quote to say, okay, you're asking me to build this. This is how much I think it's going to cost. Yeah. Okay. And so based on the drawings of Amin's project, Renisha is going to say, okay, I'm bidding on your project, or you as the teacher are saying like you've been assigned this project as a bid. So now Renisha is trying to build Amin's design. So now we're in phase 2. Okay. And so she has to using only the drawings, recreate Amin's design exactly. Okay. And again, that's where the RFIs come in. And once she's been assigned the project, that's when the timer starts. Okay. And she should be, identifying what types of materials she needs to collect. So if you have the bin of Connect parts, from Amin's drawing, she did a really great job with the the 2 big green squares. I can tell kind of exactly what those are. The piece in the middle, the orange piece, she added those like ladder looking shapes. So it's pretty easy for me to tell that. What's maybe unclear to me in these drawings are the connectors. Okay, what connector pieces are being used, and maybe what size this white, blue, and red piece are. Okay, so if I'm looking at those drawings, that's a little bit unclear to me. So I'm going to submit an RFI that's going to ask for clarification, what connector is being used on the base, right? So I'm going to submit that to Renisha. Renisha is going to come back and say, there are 4 red connectors that form the base. Then I might, ask for further clarification. For example, I'm not sure what this white piece is, or this piece that's sticking up here, right? What is that piece? And it says 20 pieces. It does not, it's a max of 20 pieces, I think is how it's written. It shouldn't, the more complex it is, the more questions you might have, right? So that's phase 2. And then at the end, phase 2, you have an estimate that you've made based on the drawings, and then you end up with your real cost after you've built it and gone through all the RFIs and answered all the questions and successfully built a replica of what was originally designed. Does that make sense? So I'm going to speak to Edie here in particular, but to everyone, this is not a drafting class. They have not had a lot of experience with drafting. We talk very, very briefly in the slides about, an isometric, a front view, a top view, a right view. So we're not looking for highly technical drawings. We're not looking for super precision. They're sketches. They're more sketches. They're not official technical drawings. If you have that experience in technical drawings, you can certainly enhance this a little bit and give them more experience and give them, make it so that they are creating higher quality drawings, because obviously the higher the quality of the drawings, the easier it is for them to interpret. But you can use colors. So even if your sketches aren't highly detailed, like if you wanted to use a yellow marker and kind of put yellow like right here and right here, and you wanted to use, you know, make it a red stick so you could show the colors, that would certainly help clarify. If you do use colors, then you probably don't need to limit the supplies as much, right? Because the colors definitely help identify what the pieces are. Where did it go? I had the cost estimate sheet. So the project is written for Connects. So we have a cost estimate sheet for Connects, which kind of lists out the common Connects pieces, if it would load. So, you know, the sticks, the colors, the connectors. We also did it for Legos. So if you're using Legos instead of Connects, it's a 1 by, oh, this is the virtual one if you're using Mechabricks. I thought we had a physical Lego one. I have to look and see. Yes, I don't know where the one. Some people use popsicle sticks, right? So you can use popsicle sticks to do this. And there's you know, you can do 1/4 of a popsicle stick, a 1/2 a popsicle stick. You've got craft sticks, jumbo sticks. So someone just, this is what they had in their classroom: straws, dowels, squares. So in this case, you would probably have to have some glue, though. I don't know how they glued everything together, connected everything. And then this is the RFI sheet. So, you know, depending on how detailed the drawings are, you would expect to have anywhere from like 1 to 5 RFIs, right? To try to get clarification. And then the what could go wrong cards. So you can have some challenges that happen along the way, like a labor dispute, hurricane, defective material, where while they're building, something goes wrong, right? And so in the bid process, when, you know, so the 5 teams in your classroom have created their designs, either you are asking them to bid on the different projects or you are assigning them a project to bid on, right? But they need to look at the pictures, look at the drawings, and come up with an estimate, like how much they think it's going to cost for them to build that project. So whether it's the students selecting or whether you're assigning them a particular project, they have to look just at the pictures, just at the drawings that were created, and based on what's there, come up with an estimate, okay? So their estimate could be way low or it could be way high, but that's part of the process, is to come up with an estimate. Okay. The main goal here is really that project management piece, or the construction management piece of it. So construction management does do a lot of, you know, bid estimates to get jobs. And then once they've gotten the job, the construction manager kind of helps facilitate those conversations between the designers and the people actually doing the building, right? So if the people, I mean, we're building a little patio path thing in our backyard right now, and the back and forth of like, well, we want it to be this. Do we want 3 foot tiles or 4 foot tiles? Do we want 3 inches between? Do we want 4 inches between them? You know, all of those different clarifications. You know, so we created a drawing and I kind of sketched out what we were looking for, and then I color coded it and said, okay, these tiles, I want them to be 4 by 4. These tiles, I want them to be 3 by 3. And, you know, so all of that process of kind of managing the communication between the design team and the building team, that's what a construction manager is really doing. So I'm going to look at the teacher notes and the student handouts to see if I can add a little bit of clarification and highlighting on that, because I feel like it maybe wasn't super clear. But the kids should end up building the exact same design as what the project was that was specified. So questions or comments about that? This is a complicated one to do over Zoom as well. I feel like it is difficult to simulate it. So y'all did a really great job like doing your pictures, building, and and I will say that the hard part is forcing the kids to do the RFIs because they want to just like shout across the room like, hey, is this a yellow connector? You know, or so forcing them to use that RFI and understanding that that takes time, right? It takes time to ask those questions and to get clarification. But if an RFI is submitted to a team, that team has to stop working on their project to answer the other team. Okay, so that way they can't intentionally cause a delay in the building by not answering the RFI. Questions? Yes, Edie.
So you had said something about the timer. So like as soon as the bid is done, and then the designer gives the drawings to the next team, they should start the timer.
Yeah, so once they've come up with their estimate,
Okay.
so let's say Renisha did her design. I'm doing the bid on the design. So I'm going to say, I think I'll do this job for $1,500. Okay. And she says, great, you've been awarded the bid. Okay. Then I come and the timer would start. I would go collect my supplies. I would start building. And then I would be asking for RFIs. And then I would say, okay, I'm done building. Is this the correct, did I build according to what you wanted? And then if she says no, then I have to submit an RFI and say, hey, is this wrong? Or, do I need to change my blue pieces to this? Or can you give me clarity on what color, this particular piece should be? And then she'll answer and we go back and forth until the design is correct. And then the timer stops.
Well, also, is there a way like, because we're in one place, is there a way to maybe, I'm thinking of how would they not look at each other's designs? So like maybe like a little folder block or something, just something, and then it's not going to be as easy to see what they're doing when they're sketching, but maybe so they don't see the colors, that because y'all had very different designs. Y'all one, very different I mean builds. But if the build can be kind of hidden, it as they're designing, the next team would, so I'm just thinking of how can I block the design process, and then of course they keep that cut blocked, and then they can do their drawings. Then I could put their designs, their builds in a closed location so nobody sees it, and then the bidding process, just so that nobody, how you said it's so much easier. Oh, that's a green connector. I'm just thinking like, okay, you're done. Okay, the drawings are done. Okay, let's put in a secure location. Let's put the build up. Let's see if they can actually recreate it. And I'll have pictures, or I'll,
So yeah, you can use you can use folders to block it while they're building it, and you can put it in a shoebox. And that'll also dictate how you define what size of an object they can build, right? If you're trying to like say store it in a shoebox, then one of the requirements would be it has to fit in a shoebox. If but so smaller, simpler, right, will have fewer RFIs. So 20 pieces is definitely a max. And then it also just depends on what materials you have available. So like one Connects kit, I think they're like $30 or something, can serve 5 or 6 teams, because you're only using a few of the pieces. And so again, you can kind of decide if you want to limit what types of pieces are available for them to use. And then maybe they don't use colors on the drawings, or you just leave it wide open and they can use colors on the drawings. But again, these are sketches. They're not like true technical drawings, because you want them, you don't want this to be like a super, super lengthy process. Yeah, it's always really interesting to see how these projects get interpreted, because that tells me where there's like some gaps in my explanation or in the, you know, presenting of the material to try to make sure that that it's clear. And so I'm definitely going to add a Lego cost sheet, because I don't know why we only have the Mecha Bricks version of it. Because I think Legos is a common, you know, common thing. And all of the teams don't have to use the same materials, but obviously whatever materials are used to design it, the team that wins the bid would need access to those same materials. So like if you had half the class do Legos and half the class do Connects, because that's just what you had, then whoever wins the bids would just need to have access to the right materials. Cool. All right, yeah, excellent job. That was really good. And definitely got the gist of it. And it's just kind of a few little tweaks on the RFI process. But I've seen so many of these presentations and the kids are like, I had 0 RFIs. And I'm like, did you really? I'm like, those drawings were not that good that you were able to interpret that. So it's like, you know, one of the things we need them to try to have our RFIs. That's part of the construction management piece. I mean, truly, if the drawings are like super perfect and the kids get it, then it might not have any RFIs, but typically we want to try to have them have that experience of an RFI. And unless they're in Edie's drafting course, their drawings probably are not going to be sufficient to clearly communicate 100% of what the design is supposed to be. So.
That's what I was wondering earlier. Like I saw the little drafting part, like in the fall. But it's probably only gonna be to just introduce. I didn't go through it yet, but like introduce the types of drawings, because it's good for them to know, you know, because isometric is totally different than the front, top, and right side, and that'll really help you if you're looking at something. So just basic. I think if they had the sketch, and this is, you know, you probably just give them a class period to build and sketch. And then the next day starts the bidding, because we have 50 minutes. You can't go real deep into it anyway. You'll be on a time limit. So
yeah, it's very high level, and you know, we call it drafting. It's not, it's really sketching, you know. So it's not technical drafting. It is sketching using some of the terminology from drafting, such as isometric top, front, and right, but it's not truly, you know, it's not necessarily to scale. It's not perfectly straight lines. It's more sketching. So.
Miss Vanessa.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So where does the profit come from? Because mine wasn't exactly like her, so I guess my numbers were wrong. So where will my profit actually come from?
Yeah, great question. So when you are, okay, so if you have the 5, you know, designs in your classroom, so right, you've got 5 different teams who have designed something. When you do the bidding, right, so you can either have the kids bid on multiple ones, and then whoever did the initial design would get the opportunity to pick which bid they, you know, like, do you want to go with the lowest bid? Do you want to go with the more expensive bid? You know, so you can really kind of take this project in a bunch of different like depths. Or if you just say, okay, team 1 is gonna be assigned to team 2's build, they're still coming up with an estimate. And so if I'm gonna say, hey, it's gonna cost $1,500 to build this, but I end up doing it faster, or I end up like, you know, I looked at the drawings and I thought that it needed, 4 purple, 2 yellow, 2 light green, and then a couple of red connectors and a couple of yellow connectors. And I thought that I could build it in 15 minutes. And then it ended up, I through the RFI process, I clarified that I didn't need the light green sticks, that I really needed the dark green sticks. Well, that's a $30 savings, right? because the sticks cost less. But where they're really typically going to have the time or the profit is in the time. So if I think it's going to take me 15 minutes and it really only takes me 10 minutes, right? Then I have a little bit of profit there. But when you're building the estimate, right, you want to build in that profit component. So just because you think that it's going to take you, if your material costs, whatever you're bidding ends up being $200 in materials, you want to say, well, I don't want to just cover the cost of the materials. When I'm doing the estimate, I'm going to say, okay, well, it's going to be $300 in materials, right? So you're building in that profit margin when you're doing that bid, because like the patio I was just describing, if the guy quotes me and says, okay, it's going to be, $1,000 to build this patio, and that is his true cost, then he's not going to make any money, right? So you have to be thinking, when you're putting the bid together, you say, I think it's going to be these materials. I think it's going to take me this much time to do it. And then you add in a profit of what you think you want to make. So if you go over on time, you're cutting into your profit. If you go over on materials, you're cutting into your profit. But if you're able to do it faster, then you get a benefit, you get more profit. So that's part of that conversation that you're having with your kids when they're doing that bidding process is, you don't want to just bid what you think it's going to cost. You want to bid what you think it's going to cost plus whatever margin you want to try to make on that project. So yeah, great question.
So how do you time, like, so to get accurate, because I'm gonna be walking around and just kind of making sure, so each team kind of times themselves, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be a self-timed thing. So when you're timing the cost of your design, that one's a little bit hard because it the time to build the design is probably going to be pretty short, right? Because they're building it and they're not having to refer to drawings and they're not having to refer to those kinds of things. So the cost, when you look at the design that you're creating, that time is a little bit, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but it's not going to be true because they're building it from their head, right? They're saying like, this is what I want to build. And you just snap some stuff together and it might take a couple of minutes. But when you're bidding on it, you have to think like, how long is it going to take me to read the drawing, to find the materials, to pull the parts, and to actually build it? Because all of that is factored into the time that it's going to take you. Just like a real construction project, like the time starts when you're awarded the bid, and then you have to go find the materials. And if your supplier is late, then you're going to be late. And so, that's why the timer for the building of the design that you've been awarded, that time is probably in the, like, I'd say 15-minute range. These are 15 to 20 minutes. Typically, depending on how complex the designs are and on how good the sketches are. And I say good, how it doesn't have to be a good sketch to be good at communicating the design. It can be like, my drawings are not very good, but hopefully, you can get the idea across. But yeah, so when you're bidding, you should consider the full amount of time for you to read and interpret the drawings, collect your supplies, and then actually build it, and then get clarification, as that goes. Yeah, this is a tricky one for sure.
So I just want to look at the
sheet.
sheet again.
Uh-huh. Oh, go ahead, Amin.
I think it's a lag again.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a lag again. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm gonna type it.
Okay. Yeah, so it says where should the profit be? So the profit would be at the bottom, and I guess it should actually have a actual profit and a bid profit. We only have the one line for profit. So so let me update the sheet. This is where, like I said, I feel like the documents need a little bit of refinement. So we'll have so I'm making these modifications. So if we do this. I get it all in one line. There we go. All right, so I made some modifications and I'm going to think about this and maybe change it up a little bit. So before it just had, and I'll show you on one of these other ones. It just had the total bid cost and the actual job cost and then the profit. But I'm going to make a modification on all of the sheets to have the total bid cost. Okay, so you have the cost of your sticks, the cost of your connectors, and then your cost in minutes. So this is going to be your cost. Then how much profit do you want to have? And then what is your final bid? So if you estimate that it's going to cost, $1,500 based on adding up all of this, then you want to have a profit of say $300. So then your final cost would be $1,800. Okay, then you would actually build it, right? And so if you buy the wrong materials, then you got to buy the right materials once you get clarification from the RFI. That would all go into your actual project. You would have your time. So your actual job, let's say based on however much time, was $1,600. So your final actual profit was $200. Does that make sense? So the teams decide what kind of profit they would want to make on the job. And that factors into their actual final bid cost. And so if you look at the sheet, it's actually set up so that you can bid on more than one project. So I've mentioned that a couple of times that you can either like assign a project or have them bid. So I think the project is actually written so that you would bid on two of the projects. So you would bid on project 1 and project 2. So let's say it's my design, right? And Edie and Amin are both bidding on my sketches. So Edie's going to say, I can do it for $1,500. Amin's going to say, I can do it for $2,000. So then it's up to me, the designer, to say, okay, I'm awarding the job to Edie because she said she could do it for less money. Okay, so, or I'm going to go with Amin because even though it's more expensive, I know she does quality work and I've worked with her before, so I'm okay working with a higher bid, right? So, and so then if I had awarded the bid to Edie, then Edie would be the one actually building my design. And she would be the one to say, okay, this is what it actually cost me. This is how long it actually took me to build it. And this was what my final profit ended up being. I projected $300, but I screwed up on some of the materials. So it ended up having less profit. Yes.
Not that, I'm just saying, I like how you said she had a better, her reputation is better. Like, I know that's too much for this project, but it is true how you would go with a company with a better reputation, and half the time you don't mind paying more. Like, not that the kids are going to understand all of that, but that is a good point. I might be cheaper, but doesn't mean it's going to be quality. So that's a whole nother class. But that was a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. So did that kind of clarify the question on profit? Because yeah, I feel like you're right. I mean, that wasn't super clear on the bid sheet. So I'm going to maybe tweak that a little bit and see if I can make it more clear. and I'll look at the student handout as well to see if I can add some clarity for that. All right, cool. Any other questions about construction management? Yes, Edie.
This is just a general question. So like, we have a couple more months and then school's gonna start and we get back into everything. Can we shoot questions to you? Like, oh my God, I have all my notes, but I forgot how you said to do, like, I know you can have a full plate too, but by the time we get to it, it might be like 6 months from now. And then I'm gonna really try to get, try to get some experience behind the projects before I have to, you know, just for my own timing and stuff and organization. But I might forget stuff or, you know,
Yes,
it's my first time. So as I go, and then
100%.
share with everybody, because I just want to do it. I don't want to say I want to do it right, but I want to do it well, you know.
Yeah, for sure. You guys all have my cell phone number. I'll put it in the chat again. I'm available anytime via text, phone, email. We will also be having once a month community of practice sessions. So that's just an opportunity. We, you know, strongly encourage all first year teachers to come, because you can be like, hey, this is what I did this past month and it worked or it didn't work. And this is what I have coming up. Does anyone have any tips and tricks? You know, all of that. And then I'll be sharing out, you know, as people email me stuff, I usually will update, you know, make some updates so I can share that out, some clarifications that we've made, all those different components. So yeah, usually once a month on like a Monday afternoon after school from like 3 to 4:30, it'll be an open, it's kind of like once a month office hours, right? That are fixed times, but I can have office hours anytime. But we do provide that. So I'm going to stop the recording.